Welcome everyone to another episode of We Ear Hustling, baby. I am Nubi the Ear Hustler, and tonight's guest, I have the amazing IAMGAWD out of Chicago. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So I'm going to jump right into it. Okay. First
Yeah.
of all, talk about the name. I am God.
Yes.
Um, I have heard many different types of creative names for artists. And the one thing that I really liked when I understood what the acronym was, which is getting ahead without devolving, I thought that that was really intelligent. I think there is this idea that hip hop artists are not intelligent, that they're not well spoken, or they don't know how to use their words. And the one thing I will say is that, especially listening to all of your music, I am thoroughly impressed. I think you would talk people underneath the rug who don't even have a clue. So I can appreciate your lyricism. I am definitely one of those that, of course, when I listen to something, the music is going to immediately sit with me or not. But even if it doesn't, I'm definitely going for lyrics. So as we go through this, people are going to start to understand how skilled you are. This is going to be a great conversation. You were raised in the LeClaire Court Housing Project,
Yes.
courts, I should say, in Chicago. And doing some homework, I discovered that one, it really was different in that it was set in a place where the environment was mainly filled with white people. And this is in the 1950s. And throughout the years, things changed. Those folks, there was an outcry of how dare you, get these people out of here, et cetera, et cetera.
White
And
flight.
hmm?
White flight.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, the redlining and all that other stuff that happens in our communities. Um, and so as I did my research, I found out, and it happens in a lot of states, in urban areas, as they call them, or the ghetto,
Yes.
where it may start out a certain way and then it's overrun by crime and drugs and that sort of thing. Not because the people, especially the hardworking people, not because they don't want to live well, because from what I understand, there was a lot of building, there was a lot of community, down to growing grass and making sure that it looked clean and neat. I mean, there's this idea that we don't know how to keep things nice, which is
Hmm.
a bit frustrating. So when I read that, I was very, very interested in your backstory. The only artists that I was familiar with coming up out of Chicago was Common, Kanye, and then of course, I would hear bits and pieces about drill music. So, number one, I want to talk about, well, I want you to tell me about growing up in that environment and also being raised in a single parent household where your mom was running the show. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So yeah, Leclerc Courts. My earliest memory of Leclerc Courts. I actually like life for me started out on the west side of Chicago, right off Cicero and Arthington. That
Okay.
was my grandfather's house, my mother's father.
Hmm.
So after I was born, we went straight from St. Francis Hospital to his house, and we stayed there up until I was almost 4 years old.
Hmm.
And during that time, my mother was pregnant with my little sister. I have two siblings, a younger brother and a younger sister.
Hmm.
With my sister being a middle child, my little brother being the youngest, and I'm of course the oldest.
Hmm.
So around like I want to say wintertime, 1992, I want to say we moved to Leclerc Courts. So I'm almost four. And I don't remember much from the beginning of Leclerc Courts. I just remember like we had little to no furniture when we first moved there. It was an empty apartment, and I can remember one instance like wintertime, ice everywhere. Chicago winters, the Chicago winters of the '90s. Those was different. Like winter nowadays, I mean, we haven't even really had winter out here this year, thankfully. But like the '90s Chicago winters was crazy. So I'm like jumping up and down off the porch. My mother is trying to get us in her apartment, trying to unlock the door, and I had my hands in my pocket. And this last time I jumped, my footing slipped and I like fell face first into the porch and like bust my mouth up.
Mm.
So, and I could remember like being laid up and I having ice like putting it, holding it on my mouth. So I already got big lips. So imagine like a little kid with like even bigger lips, just like bloody. I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. But she was pregnant during that time. But just a funny story. Leclerc course was home. Like I didn't really realize like the things, the negative things or the things that was going on that was wrong until a little later, until I got, some maturity and some intelligence and understanding about myself. But for the most part, as a child, it was good. It was great. It was home. I was comfortable. My mother, a single parent, as you know what I'm saying, stated already, like she was very musical, so I get my love of music from her, and that's normally how I go. It comes from the parents and it trickles down to the kids and so on and so forth. But she used to play all types of music. Of course, Sundays was gospel only, cleaning up, you know what I'm saying? Like we doing all the chores or whatever, helping her clean up, and she got the gospel blasting, but for the most part, it would be like Whitney Houston, Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin,
The
uh,
great.
yeah, In Vogue, Freddie Jackson,
Mhm.
just so many different musical artists, Mary J. Blige, like all types of stuff going on. So it was like, and that's why to this day, like 90s R&B is like my favorite era of R&B. Like I'm partial to like the 70s and the 80s too. The music was incredible, like just with the real instrumentation. But I have a special, place in my heart for like the 90s era, So she used to sing, she never pursued it professionally or anything like that, but she used to like walk around the house singing and she had an amazing voice. And she actually taught me my alphabet through notable artists at the time. So it would be like A is for Al B. Shore, B is for Bobby Brown, C is for Cameo, D is for DeBarge, things like that.
I
So it
love it.
was, yeah, it was dope. And as a shorty, like she got me my own vinyl. Like I had
Mm.
I had Bad on vinyl, Michael Jackson. I can't remember the name of the album. It might have been self-titled, but I had a vinyl of it was a boy group, R&B, The Boys.
Hmm.
I can't remember like any of the songs, but I just know as a shorty, I used to love them because I used to dance before I even got into rap. I used to draw and I used to dance. So
Mm.
yeah, like that was my upbringing. And as far as like outside, I didn't really, it was still a sense of community. Personally, I don't feel like it's really anything. I don't believe a black community exists anymore. I just believe it's like neighborhoods of like black people. I feel like the community has been like destroyed. I
Hmm.
don't like, I haven't seen it if it does still exist. That's like in those inner city areas, especially in Chicago. But it was still very much so community. You know what I'm saying? Like we
Hmm.
had rec centers, recreational centers. We had after school programs. Like the teachers' aides used to like walk from the rec center to our schools, pick us up, make us get in a single file line, and walk us back into the neighborhood. Like that's dead. Like I don't think nobody is doing that anywhere anymore. So it was still very much so a community. I mean, you had all your key players within the community. I mean, you had, the cable guy who might have fell on hard times or was out there dibbling and dabbling and whatever. But he'd be up on a cable on a light pole, you know what I'm saying, hooking up illegal cable for everybody in the neighborhood. You had the neighborhood Jehovah Witness, rest in peace, Miss Abby, and everybody business, like reporting back to your parents anytime you got caught out of line. You had the neighbors, you had that one kid across the street or across the way that you was always getting into it with, always fighting and then friends the next day. I mean, it was hopscotch drawing on the sidewalks and playing in the summertime, girls double dutching. It was beautiful. Like I missed that a lot. Yeah, up until like I started hitting my pre-teenage years, my preteens, that's when I kind of started like realizing like, oh, okay, it's really real out here when you get a little older. It's kind of different. But for the
Hmm.
most part of my early upbringing, like it was dope. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I mean, you said community and that it's non-existent. I do believe that, at least when I was coming up, the neighbor could beat me. and tell my mother she beat me because I was doing something that I had no business doing, and then I get home and get beat again. You know, it's that
Absolutely.
sort of environment. And yeah, it is different. These kids are kind of left to their own devices, and those devices are literally TVs and phones. And you know, there is no outside unless you are poor, that poor, where you don't have those things.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's dope to hear that story, especially when you said double dutching too, because I used to double dutch. I
All the girls
love,
used to do it. I used to be
yeah,
sitting there watching, like, okay, but yeah, all of them used to do it. Yeah.
yeah. I wasn't good at it. I was a sports girl. I played basketball and ran track, and
Okay.
that was my thing. But I still found a way. I had a tag for graffiti. My name was Shorty Rock. You know, it
Okay.
was like
Cool.
old school, old school. So, but I know that there is an age difference between you and I, and it tells me a lot about your mom, you
Mhm.
know, who is probably closer in age to me, in terms of the music when you talk about the 80s and the 90s. And so that's
Mhm.
dope that that was introduced to you just through living, right?
Right.
Get up, turn around, Sundays, clean up, da 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 da. It's the same thing in so many of our Black households.
Absolutely.
And I think that that is the cornerstone of a lot of good raising. And I appreciate the fact that you didn't act like, because you know some of these folks you talk to, like, yeah, I was out there gunning them up and you know whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's like, yeah, I like to deal in reality, and you know, reality is, I guess people's own reality is what it is, right?
Right.
You started rhyming at 12.
Hmm.
What was your first introduction to hip hop, and when did you know that you were serious about it?
So my first introduction to hip hop that I could remember was the video for Brenda's Got a Baby, Tupac. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was like, what was that, 90,
Don't get me.
91, 91 maybe,
Mm,
91, 92, something like that. So yeah, so black and white video. And at this point in time, you know, the video, it's not graphic, it kind of is, kind of not, but you just see the young lady who portraying Brenda like put the baby in a dumpster and all that. And it's like me seeing that, at the age I am, like I'm what, like it's 91, so I'm like what, 5, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's it was shocking. Like I didn't know that existed at that age, so it's like, but Pac is such a Pac didn't try to do too much um, lyrically. Not to say he wasn't a lyricist, because I definitely
it was
consider
simple.
myself a
Yeah.
lyricist, yes. But his approach was simplistic. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I can, at 5 years old, I could go along with everything he's saying. And I'm hearing it, but I got the visual to go to it, which made it even more vivid for me. So I'm like, wow, I didn't know those type of things existed, but that story was always intriguing to me. That video was always intriguing to me, but I didn't start rhyming until years later. So 5 years old was probably my first introduction to hip hop. But like you said, I didn't start rhyming until 12 years old. And at that time, that's like what, 98, So it's like we dealing with the losses of Big and Pac. The glamour is almost at an all-time high as far as like rapping hip hop. Like the money is in abundant, cars, women, jewelry everywhere. So as a young black male that grew up without much, that was very intriguing to me, outside of the poetic value that I already knew, what I'm saying, rapping hip hop held. I was drawn to that first, the
Mm,
poetic value of it, being able to tell a story, being able to get your thoughts out. And that was always intriguing to me because I wasn't like popular. I wasn't like a sports guy. I'm only like 5'8", so I played basketball for fun, but I knew it really wasn't no room for me to try to do that professionally and like make that something that I wanted to do. My love was in drawing first, and then it went from drawing and dancing to rap and hip hop. So around 12 years old, and I probably started rapping around like 10. I probably got good around like 12. So
mhm.
10, I'm the going to school and I ain't no fool and all that. So, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
12 was probably when I started getting good. So yeah.
I really want to get into this music, and I want to go back a little bit in terms of your catalog. So for those who are watching, they understand, number one, you're not new to this. Um,
Absolutely not.
you know, number two, I have to say, listening to everything, I was like, wow. Like once again, I'm gonna emphasize the lyricism. Um, to me, it was just there were very poignant messages. There were just things that were just dope as hell, and I'm like, oh, we got to talk about this a little bit. But I'm gonna go ahead and start with "I Am God,"
Yes.
which dropped in 2020, and of course, we're in pandemic mode. um, Talk to me a little bit about getting that out while the world is shutting down.
Oh man. Okay, so 2020. So I gotta kind of preface the explanation by going into 2016 a little bit because I've been rapping forever, but
Hmm.
my music has been online since around like 2009.
Hmm.
But I called myself quitting in like 2016, like middle end of 2016, something like that. And I didn't get back into music. Well, the reason I quit, I was just frustrated, like frustrated with myself. I hadn't gained any traction, and I wasn't doing everything that I could have and should have been doing either. So, I didn't wasn't making any moves. I didn't like the space music was in as a whole. So it's kind of like I kind of shut everything out, and I was listening to the stuff I grew up on. And I'm like, I'm done with rap. I'll just work a job, knowing damn well that I'm not just going to work a job for the rest of my life. That could not be what it is. So I come back in late 2019, and what made me come back is, or who made me come back into rap was Conway the Machine. This is like
Mm.
early years of Griselda, and it's the freestyle where he on what is that? It's that static selector. I
It
think it's
probably.
like Shade 45. I think he up there with Static Selector, and that's the one
Mhm.
where he was like going in on all the battle rappers. Cut Disaster in half with a plastic knife and all that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh shit, like Buddy is crazy, and he got like the shit with
Mhm.
his face, but he's still spitting. And I'm like, I saw via social media how people was going crazy over it. I'm unfamiliar with Griselda at this point. Like I said, I wasn't tapped into nothing new. I was disgusted with myself musically. I was disgusted with where music was at, mainstream wise. So I was listening to stuff from the 90s, in the early 2000s, the stuff I
Mhm.
grew up on. So I wasn't paying attention to anything current. So I'm seeing like Twitter and everybody going crazy over this, and I'm reading the YouTube comments, and I'm like, damn, like y'all, last time I checked, like this wasn't it. Like y'all like this type of rap again now? And that kind of put the battery in my back. They say old habits die hard. So I'm like, shit, if y'all like this, then let me get in where I fit in. It might
Mhm.
be a hope. Because my mindset at this time is like the industry basically dictated how you got on and what that looked like. So if you was 30 plus, it wasn't no debut. Like you missed that boat. Like if you ain't a teenager or somewhere in your 20s, like you're not debuting a 30 plus year old artist in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? That just was unrealistic. The oldest artist to drop debut albums at the time was probably X and J. I think Jay was what, like 26 when he dropped Reasonable Doubt. X was like
Mhm.
almost 28 when It's Dark and Hell is Hot came out. So
Mhm.
that's like the oldest artists from my experience that I've seen actually debut, and they been out. Not to say that they was brand new, but
Right,
as far
right.
as debut albums. So I'm like, at that point in time, I'm like, oh, it's over for me. Like probably nobody is gonna hear me and this and that. I'm just over it. But something was just like it reinvigorated me seeing Conway the Machine and that freestyle. And I got deeper into Griselda and started checking out the underground and some of the newer artists, and I'm hearing Ransom, and I remember hearing Ransom name from the earlier 2000s, but I'm like, he sounds totally different now. Like he much more polished. And I'm like, oh, like, but I know he older than me. I'm like, Ransom got to be at least like 40. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh shit. So you can actually do this now and be of a older age, but still be taken seriously,
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, bet. So I did a freestyle, my era's definition of a freestyle, a pre-written verse. It wasn't like a response, but it was inspired by Benny's 97 hole. So
Mhm.
Benny had the 97 hole, 10 and 12 3. And I did, I think I looped the shootouts beats with the I Gave You Power beat from It Was Written, because Nas is my favorite rapper. That's my goal. So, and I think like 96 Nas is like the best rapper ever. I don't think nobody was touching Buddy at that time. Like 96 Nas, like the jump he took from Illmatic lyrically to It Was Written was just like crazy.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'll agree with that.
all right, you know. So yeah, I gave you Power and the Shootouts beats and looped them together, and I did what I called 96 Nas. You know what I'm saying? Inspired by Benny's 97 Hove. And you know, I was like tagging a bunch of people, and Benny was one of the ones I tagged, and he actually like retweeted it at one time. And shout out the bro GQ the teacher. You know what I'm saying? Like
The building, yes.
I'm not surprised you know him. Like bro knows everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. So salute
Yeah.
GQ. He hit me up on Twitter and he told me, like, he was asking Benny, like, bro, to show new artists or something. Like, he nice. He like, nah, nigga, he from your part of the world. You know what I'm saying? He from Chicago. And to my credit, GQ tell me this all the time. Like, man, I be kicking myself in the ass for not knowing who you were. I'm like, bro, like, I was just coming back. And even when I was out, I wasn't outside. I wasn't like doing shows. I wasn't really like going to shows. I'm thinking I could still do it from behind a computer, from in front of a computer. You know, so GQ, I got up with GQ. He introduced me to a lot of people. One of those people being my primary engineer, Dr. Mindbender. Like, I didn't even know it was like an underground circuit, a underground crew, underground wave in Chicago. Again, I'm completely tapped out. I'm in my own world. I ain't thinking about music. So I'm meeting all these different artists, producers, and engineers, and this one and that one. And you know, things just started coming together. And through my engineer, Dr. Mindbender, I met some artists, Johnny Guns and Dosage and Ahosa, and they introduced me to a producer by the name of Max Julian, who produced IAMGAWD in its totality. So it's like I got with him and we just started cooking. Like me and Doc actually started cooking first. So Doc produced moving, not to try to move forward, but he produced Hell's Angels and Heaven's Demons, which I dropped. That was my second project of 2021. So we started working on that first, but just like things got sidetracked and I ended up meeting Max, and then that's how I Am God came about.
Gotcha. Yes. Now I was taking note of the producers on each project and their style.
Yeah.
I definitely I'm going to get into that because Doc Mindbender, what I noticed about his production is kind of dark. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting. So as I'm following your catalog from what I have available to me, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing the transition, but I'm also seeing like with Crypto, it's like black exploitation vibes. And so I'm like, oh, this right here now is this is up my alley. You know what I'm saying? And of course, Max Julian on this. And again, each producer gave their own feel to it. And of course, you rhyming, and then of course you're doing guest appearances or have guest appearances by Vic Spencer, Brittany Carter, all these people, and I'm like, okay, JR, like, all right, let's go, let's, and I have to say that you never, as a connoisseur of music in general, whether it's R&B or whether it's hip hop, I like to be pleasantly surprised. You just, you never know what you're going to get. And there have been some heavy disappointments for me in terms of what I thought an artist was based off of a couple of songs. And then I get to the catalog and it's trash. And I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but, it's so funny to me how the worst MCs are the most confidently wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, how does this happen? And how do the good ones not get their play and their shine? So Shakespeare, one of the lines in it is chip on my shoulder, big as a boulder from all the years I've been doubted, left out, and simply looked over. And I was like, okay, he got something to say.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And that song in itself resonated with me because you're giving it the rundown like, I'm here. I am God. I am here. The second song, which I thought was brilliant, and not that I didn't think the entire album was, but I just, because of what I was doing in terms of looking through stuff, I just wanted to pick a couple from each. More Than Drill Music. To me, that spoke volumes because we obviously know that Chicago is associated with drill music and has been for some time, and they forget about the Commons and the Kanye Wests and you and Brittany Carter, and is Kumbaya from Chicago too? Like I don't know why we as people tend to just go towards the negative, right? So um there's also in that the very beginning, which is a very popular movie line if you are into cult movies like Boys in the Hood and Baby Boy, it starts off saying, you know, y'all want to see a dead body. And I thought that was crazy to kind of just come in as an intro and then just smack them with the lyrics. I was like, okay, all right, this is it. This is it for me. Talk to me about what you were trying to get across with this specific album, being that you had gone on hiatus and now you were back.
So it's funny how it came together because at that time my name was actually T to God. So it wasn't even like a self-titled project. When I initially stopped rapping, my name was T to God. And the GAWD was still getting ahead without devolving. It's just that, you know, my government name, first name starts with a T. So I was T to God. But during the trademark process, I stumbled upon another T to God, TDAGOD. And you know, the attorney was like, I would stay away from that. You don't want to get into any legal issues, you know what I'm saying, moving forward. And at that time, this was like after I am God. I'm using a hashtag I am God because I am God always meant I am getting ahead without devolving. But that was just like a play on the phrase and kind of like a lifestyle. Like anything I do is kind of like is it means something. So I'm like, I was scared to use it at first because I didn't, you know, want any of the backlash. But I'm like, you know what? Like it is controversial, but it means something to me. It's powerful, and I think it kind of like describes me as an artist. Like if I had to look at myself and compare myself to anything, like I feel like I'm kind of like Incredible Hulk type shit. I'm smashing everything. You know what I'm saying? Like when I get on one, just move out the way. But it's still that part of me that's intellectual, the Bruce Banner, whatever, you know what I'm saying? You
Right.
want to say like the intellectual side too. So with I Am God, like I definitely wanted to make a statement. That was my first project in some years. I knew certain people will remember me and be anticipating me making more music, but I also knew social media and the internet was much bigger than it was, or a little bigger than it was than when I left music initially. So it's kind of like, all right, like how, because I'm broke, like I don't got no money, like I'm working, but I'm just like living from check to check. So how do I make the most out of what I have at my disposal? You know, like the resources that I have available to me. Like, how do I make the most out of that? You rap your ass off and you rap like you fighting for your life. And that's always been my MO anyway. So it's kind of like each song was like a statement because I was over the drill. I was no disrespect to nobody, but I never was really a fan of the drill. And it's kind of hypocritical of me because like Shoot 'em in the Head is one of my favorite Styles P songs of all time. But it hit different when it's like it's your own backyard and like you know people that this shit is affecting and you know you might be affected by it. You know, it's different when it's in your backyard. Like I don't know nobody from Yonkers. Like I don't have a local news channel for Yonkers to see what's going on. I know it's crazy stuff going on, but I don't see it. Like sad to say, it means less because I'm not there, out of sight, out of mind, so to speak. You know, so with Chicago, it was different though, and I know them shorties wasn't just rapping; like they was really about everything that they were saying, and bodies was dropping more often than the songs was coming out. American pop culture, we romanticize gangster shit, and I understand Chicago as a gangster city, been that way for a long time. So, kind of like you said, like it's like overnight certain people forgot about everything we gave prior to, and even outside of rap, Shaka Khan, Curtis Mayfield, Sam Cooke, you know, the list goes on. You know, so I didn't want everything historically that we give into the game and to black culture and to pop culture, American culture, to be diminished by drill. And I know it never could be, but that's like the feeling I was getting. So it's kind of like that's what the hashtag came from. Chicago never forgot how to rap because it's like, okay, I understand that this is the current wave. This is what the younger guys listening to and the younger girls listening to, but y'all praising other areas for they artists that really get busy. And let me just remind y'all, we fucking get busy out here. I just wanted to make a statement, you know, and I also wanted to show all sides of my artistry, you know. So you got storytelling on there, you got introspectivity on there, you got hardcore, just ignorant ass aggression on there, you got intricacy on there, you got technicality on there. It's like lyricism, song structure. I just wanted to show everything that I've accumulated, all the skills I've accumulated over the years prior to me quitting and coming back, and just let people know like I'm a real artist, but I also rap my ass off, and I'm from Chicago. No
Right.
drill beats, like none of that. So
Mhm.
that was my main mission.
Yeah, and it's funny because I just had an interview with Configure out of the UK, who his latest work has been with Arrested Development, and we were talking about the differences in the US versus across seas. And not only is America just, we the biggest and the baddest always, but then you have the states, and I'm from New York, where we if it ain't New York, it ain't shit. And
Right.
I'm glad that over the years, that has proven not to be true. And one of the things that I also said was, people thought that everything hit New York first. It didn't. I lived in Richmond, Virginia, but after it was the murder capital of the freaking world and in the United States. And I was getting hip hop down there that was not being played in New York. I was in New York when Funkmaster Flex played "Hey" in the middle of the barn. You know what I'm saying? By Christian
Shout out Christian
Conflict.
Conflict.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, what is this?
Yeah.
So it's dope that you're talking about this. And yeah, Yonkers got some hood ass shit going on, but I'm gonna tell you what, I don't think they fucking with Chicago. I want to talk about Brooklyn and the Bronx, but I mean, it's some serious stuff going on. I mean, there's projects in Yonkers that I wouldn't drive past. You know what I'm saying? Every state has it, and I think that what happens is it becomes, because hip hop is braggadocious, right?
Right.
Everything becomes braggadocious, and certain things just shouldn't be braggadocious.
Absolutely.
Right? The biggest
Absolutely.
gun in my mind should not be something braggadocious. You know what I'm saying? The largest amount of kilos shouldn't be. So, but again, in the different types of hip hop, and I call them subgenres, you got, coke rap, you got, you know what I'm saying, all this other stuff. It's interesting, and we interviewed Great God on We Rap Gods, definitely a coke rapper, talking about it, living it, and I have to say, like, his bars are dope. You know what I'm saying?
He dope.
Right.
Super
You know what I'm saying? So I sent your music to a 90s hip hop artist, just sent this the Spotify link, and they was like, yo, that's who you interviewing? Yep.
Thank
You
you.
know
I
what I'm saying?
appreciate that.
The Internal Reflection. The first thing that hit me was an intro by Kendall Green. And he's going right in roaring like, yo, y'all not doing what y'all supposed to be doing. These kids is out here running rampant, acting fool. The children are being raised, just like I said, by everything and everyone else but who they're supposed to be. That to me was a beautiful way to start off that album, especially it being titled Internal Reflection. It's like, all right, so what are we doing here? I feel like that album was very obviously introspective. And you also had the opportunity to kind of let off steam about being held down and he being held back in our environments. And if we really get into it and we start talking about social economics and the way things are built to keep us in a way,
Yes.
the song Chosen and that hook really stuck with me. Tired of being down, I just want to be up. Every time they break us down, we just keep rising up. One thing about this pandemic, it put our struggle in your faces. Talk to me about this song, and why you went that route.
I absolutely love that song. I absolutely love that project. That project was definitely like definitely letting steam off. I was kind of going through a transformation from like knowing I'm black and having pride in being black, but at the same time not really caring, not thinking black is anything special, to like, oh no, like we raw as hell. You know what I'm saying? And I'm proud, of who I am. Like if I die today, resurrect me 10 shades darker type shit. So it's kind of like it was hurting me to see a lot of what was going on, especially like in Chicago, so this was like the drill era still, pandemic, so it was kind of like stuff was coming to a head. And actually the intro, bro, Kendall Green, shout out to him because he's an artist too. He go by King Music, Kyng. That was a Facebook Live. That was audio from a Facebook Live he did a few moments after FBG Duck got killed. So all his is from the same interview. All the pieces of audio I took from him was doing that same Facebook Live, and everything was in respect to FBG Duck just being killed. The news that just broke. Downtown, of all places, Magnificent Mile, places like Gucci stores and all of that, places where you won't think nothing like that happened. But the song Chosen, shout out to Brittany Carter and Olive Blue. Two of the dopest artists we have in Chicago, and two of the dopest artists, period. Olive Blue being a R&B artist. She was on, I think, season 4 of The Voice. She's done some great things. Brittany Carter, I think she actually, I can't remember the name of the cartoon, but it's a cartoon that's on a streaming service, and I think she got music on it. Like, I'm proud of them, you know what I'm saying, for what they doing. Dope young ladies, you know what I'm saying? I love them. Absolutely. And it just, I was introduced to Brittany Carter and Olive Blue at the same time. You know, Brittany Carter had a series of like freestyles she was doing and shooting videos for them. And the first one I saw, it was her and Olive, and she got a lot of them like that, to where Olive is singing. So to me, it only felt right to get both of them, because Olive got that melody, you know, that voice, and Brittany is just like, I don't want to compare her, but to me, she give me like Bahamadia vibes. Like Bahamadia was a beast. And like
Bahamadia is still a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. Pardon me. You know what I'm saying? Pardon myself. Like, yeah. But she got like that tone and that cadence. But she absolutely her own artist. Like Brittany is super dope. You know what I'm saying? One of the best in Chicago, male or female. Like, I'm not gonna put that female MC title on her because she dope. She get busy. You know, so it just made sense. You know, I'm a fan of Brittany. I'm a fan of Olive. Like, I came back into rap at the perfect time, because I didn't know who we had representing us. And I'm a fan of everybody, you know, so they inspire me. You know what I'm saying? Like, they keep me going. Like, I couldn't be as creative as I am if I was the only one, you know, so I need that spark, you know, so it just made sense. And like, with the Eternal Reflection, just like all the Trump stuff that was going on, the issues in Chicago, like all like the black motorists just being killed for no reason, and just black people being shot down by police for no reason. It's just like everything. Like, and I was just so emotionally frustrated, mentally frustrated, emotionally drained. Like, I had a lot of hate bubbling inside me at that point in time. But seeing all this shit is kind of like, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that's kind of like, that's one of the meanings of the Eternal Reflection. Like, even though it's different times, this shit still looks almost identical to how it's been. I got to give a shout out to the artist 46 Designs for that album cover, because that portrait is actually a commissioned painting of a young kid by the name of Robert Yummy Sandifer, who was murdered back in 1994. Like, and the story was so infamous, like it made the cover of Time magazine.
Really?
That actual image, you know, was on Time magazine. And he was a young kid, 11 years old, when he was murdered. It was reported that he was a member of the BDs, the Black Disciples, you know what I'm saying, out of South Side of Chicago, Roseland area. And, you know, the story goes, he was sent on a mission to hit an opposition, and he ended up killing a young girl by mistake. And so, to keep him quiet, from when the police started getting hot, he was murdered by his own gang, execution style. They lured him away under the guys that they was finna get him out of town, and they killed him, 11 years old. And, you know, I was like probably like 16, 17 when I heard that story. I didn't hear it at the time it happened. I might have been a little young, around like 15, 16, but that story never like left my mind. That was like amazing to me, you know, that happened. And, you know, I got some pushback. I don't know any members of his family, and I got a little pushback for using his image, specifically from his older sister. But I got some blessings from some of his other family members, notably his younger brother, Dave. Shout out to him. And I think some of his cousins that gave me some words of encouragement via social media. But I can understand his big sister's point of view, because it seems like she was the one that was of age and was in the household with him, taking care of him, whatever their relationship was. So I understand it, but I feel like it's opening old wounds that people would probably just prefer to stay closed. So my apologies for that. But at the same time, that's too potent of a story to just let die. So I'm of two different minds about it. It's selfish of me to do it, because the family probably just want to get past it and don't want to keep reliving that pain. But for me, like, this shit is still going on. And that's why I chose to use that portrait as the album cover and title it The Eternal Reflection, because even with the drill shit, each one of those stories to where this one was murdered or that one was murdered, like I thought of him, you know. So it's 2000 whatever that happened in 1994, but the same shit is still going on.
Right.
So, you know, like to me, it fit, but I understand I did that for selfish reasons as well. But it was all in the name of art.
I'm glad you told me that story because I was wondering who the little boy was. He didn't look like you. And you know, there are animals, and I'm gonna use this analogy, that eat their young. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. It is a dog eat dog world out
Absolutely.
there, and you know you got to pay to play. I'm gonna actually go look up that article. I do want to read about it and understand what happened. But sometimes our children get caught up. You know, even when the parents are doing everything that they can to keep their children out of trouble. I always
Absolutely.
say this: I don't always blame the parents. It's not always, because I know for a fact I've raised siblings,
Mhm.
and you want them to turn out a certain way because you can instill certain things in them, but they gonna be who they gonna be. At
Absolutely.
the end
And
of the day,
sometimes the environment is
overpower.
sometimes the foundation of the parental guidance is no match for the environment. Unfortunate to say, the
Right.
environment sometimes is just too strong, too prolific, too influential, and it's too appealing. And you know, as children, we tend to look at this. It's this is too strict. I don't want this. I could run wild and do this, and you know,
Right.
sometimes we got to pay the price for it.
Right.
Unfortunately,
The children are outside the house at least 8 hours a day. You just have to hope that they make the right decision. So yeah, that album, it really resonated. All the music resonated with me. That really, I have to say, the way you title your albums and even the songs, they're very reflective. And as you talk about them, it even adds up even more. So I appreciate you sharing that information. Want to get into Hell's Angels and Heaven's Demons. And that was produced by Dr. Mindbender. And that was the first thing the first piece of your music where I was like, wow, this is kind of dark feeling. This is, you know what I mean? And I tend to stay away from that type of stuff, because I feel like my frequency is set up a certain way, right? And I don't want to absorb certain things,
Mhm.
but it wasn't dark in the way of the way I thought it was going to be. It was very emotional. It was very The music was very dark. Um, doesn't necessarily mean that the lyrics were dark. So I enjoyed this piece as well. Honor Me, you came in heavy with that one off that project. Why would you question my greatness? I'm a monster since I was a little urchin. Talk about feeling unseen or unheard. Like, tell me about, and you talk a lot about that throughout your catalog of music. It's kind of like, I'm here. Do you hear me? Do you see me? Talk to me about that.
Real quick, I gotta shout out Custom Made because he is the sole producer of the Eternal Reflection. I'd be remiss to talk about the
Forgot
Eternal
about
Reflection without mentioning Custom Made. So shout
Yes.
out, bro. Who is actually like he does a lot of my cover art too. He kind of like a one stop
Mm,
shop. He do my merch, he do my cover art, like the vinyl press up for the cover art for that, all that. So shout out, salute, bro. Custom Made, and shout out Filthy Records because a lot of this music came out with Filthy Records as well. Decay, whole squad. But yeah,
yes.
Hell's Angels and Heaven's Demons, and Honor Me, and the feeling of being overlooked. And sometimes I do feel like not so much now, but even still a little bit now, I have to like kind of beat my chest and yell to the moon, so to speak. And it's kind of like I try not to do that too much because I feel like if you always got to say it, it ain't really true. Like let the people say
Mm,
it for you.
mm.
But another recurring theme of mine with all my music is just like, oh, me being the best and this and that. And that's the regular old rapper
Braggadocious.
braggadocio. But at the same time, like I do feel it. And for anybody in disagreement, like that's fine. But even if I'm not, I'm right there with whoever you feel like the best is, talent wise, you know. And I do feel like I have what it takes to be the absolute best. I want to be the absolute best. I want to be one of the greatest to ever do it. So, you know, coming from Chicago, a place that at the time was only known for like one thing, and kind of like everything else traditionally, historically that we gave the culture was kind of like put on a back burner, you know. And just the fact that it's hard to like it's not the 90s anymore, to where like, as that was a fault of mine. Like I was still under the impression like some A&R is gonna come pluck me out of wherever I was in life and like put me on and like get me a deal. Like, bro, that's the 90s. Like that time is over with. Like it don't work like that no more. So you have to get out here and you have to wear all these hats until you can, assemble a team and have them help you put in the work. So it's kind of like just having to do everything and kind of like knowing in my soul, in my heart of hearts, that I'm absolutely one of the best, but just knowing that it's so much to get through. Rap is such an oversaturated area, as is damn near everything these days. I mean, social media has made that abundantly clear. Everybody is doing everything, whether it's podcasting, whether it's producing, whether it's rapping, whatever the case may be. And I feel like eventually, if you dedicated enough and if you talented enough, you are going to shine through. And I'm finally starting to see myself shine through and break through a little bit. And I'm super appreciative like that. It's almost like I'm where I want to be, almost, because it's like it's been a journey. And being at the bottom of the pile, at the bottom of the barrel, and just knowing that you feel like you deserve to be up top, and you scratching and you clawing and you get so far and then you get knocked back down and you got to start over and you get side shifted, and then this happens and that happens and you gain a little more traction and you climb a little bit more and you get knocked back down some more. It's kind of like it's an ebb and flow of just like endurance and durability. You really have to be I can't remember the quote, but it's something about like you have to kind of be a little insane to like be great at anything, because it's like, what normal person is going to take all these like downfalls and these and things not working out and having to reconfigure things, and real life gets in the way of stuff. It's like, what sane person is going to deal with all that? But it's the person that strongly believes in what it is that they're doing. Like, and I believe like I'm one of them ones. If I was put here to do anything else besides music is definitely the trampoline that's going to get me there. So anything outside of music I was put here to do, I'm not sure of it. I feel like I was put here to do music and spread a message that way. And if that's not the end game, it's part of the game. I know that for a fact. Like I didn't dedicate myself to this all this time, all these years. I'm 20 plus years in. Like, I didn't dedicate myself for this long to like just all like it. No, it's just a hobby. Like, nah, like I believe in this. So it's just frustrating, and sometimes you got to beat your chest and yell at the moon and let people know, like, hey, I'm here. Like, I understand he dope, she nice, he dope, this one and that one, but I'm here too, and I'm just as great, if not better. And that's the competitive side, so
yeah. I mean, and I think listen, and I think you said it well when you said ebbs and flows, and talked about even the level of tenacity, which could be considered insanity, because you continue to push through. And I just feel like there is room for people to be heard. And I think, I don't know who, there was a conversation recently online about, who dictates what we're hearing. And my response to that is, and I think I commented on the post, is, the masses dictate because they're the consumer. So if you're looking for a certain type of music, that's what's going to be pushed. Then you have the people behind the scenes with the money and the strings. And I mean, we've talked about, I've had discussions with people about plants, being put into so there's all these things to overcome. And when you talk about the 90s versus now, I mean, really, the only difference to me is you saw the devil in person in the 90s. Here, the devils are hidden, right? There, you don't know where anything and everything is coming from, and you're absorbing it. And so when you talk about wanting to be seen and heard because that's really all you have. And a lot of it is like luck of the draw.
Yes.
Because the other thing is, not only do you have to be great this time, but you got to be great every time, because we're inundated with so much music. Like, I'm so sick and tired, honestly. And I mean, my show is we ear hustling, baby. And sometimes I have to just like last week, Wednesday, Thursday, I had to just shut down for a second because I was getting inundated with certain things, and I'm just like, if one more broad sounds like scissor, or one more like, you know what I mean, like I need some authenticity, I need some originality, and so I understand your plight, because even me as a listener, I'm like, I do not want to hear this shit. Let me scroll. I don't hear that shit. Let me scroll. And it was one point last week where I'm going to take my phone and throw it, because I'm
Right.
just like, yo, this shit is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Like, any and everybody who has a mouthpiece, who has access to type, they got fingers, is everybody got it. I was like, okay, God, I just need to take a break
Mm-hmm.
and step away so I can get out my own head, because I be wanting to respond to some of these things, and I have to remember I have a platform. So Murder Castle, and then Bloodstained Suede Part 1. On Murder Castle, that was produced by Black Depths.
Yes.
Also, another heavy, dark sounding album for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
But on Cheat Code Flows, the way the music switches up for this particular verse, I was like, damn, he nailed that. I mean, it was just crazy. So the verse is, I could never respect you dumb fucks as kings. I'm the motherfucking best. Just come fucking clean. Leave the mansion with the maid. She gonna make fucking clean. Throat like a wishing well. She a cum sucking queen. I said, God damn. I was like, what? And it's the listen. I know I'm not saying it right, and it probably sounds funny as hell.
No,
But
it's just like me listening back to my old shit. Like, bro, you be
yeah,
on some shit, bro.
listen, you was on one with that one, but it's the cadence and the flow. So for those of you who are watching, you got to listen to the song to understand, because first of all, the song musically comes in one way, and then right at that verse it picks up and does something else, and I'm like, well, damn, that was like, I was like, okay, let me rewind this a little bit, because I wanted to. So that was one. And then for Bloodstained Suede, there were two tracks on there that I'm gonna say Clipto is probably my favorite out of all of them in terms of production. They're all dope. I ain't taking away from nobody. But
Absolutely.
the nostalgia that comes with Clipto's ear is like, mwah. Like I can't even. I rock heavy with him now. Okay.
Shout out, bro. Shout out, Clipto.
Yes. He gives cinematic vibes. You give the cinematic vibes along with what he's doing. So I think for me, that's why it's because it gives me a huge visual when I'm listening. So the trenches, this is just one line out of there. Keep your eyes open. These devils is potent. And if you ain't know, they deceptive as hell. And then on Dogfire.
Oh, dog food.
I mean, dog food, I meant. I'm sorry. I said
It's
Dogfire.
all good.
Because in my head, it's fire. Right? So can I just say, like, you were, and I don't really listen, it just is what you were in fucking pocket on this shit. Like
Gratitude.
crazy. Like
Thank you.
the verses, the flow. Like I think I don't even know. I have a lot of favorites out of your discography. I'm gonna have to make a separate playlist for my own listening pleasure. But this was so I'm more Malcolm in the Window than Malcolm in the Middle. I'm Martin Scorsese meets Martin Luther King. What? What? Like I'm like the whole thing. The whole thing. So all of these projects have given me a different view into who you are as an MC. Um, how you work well and play nice with others, how you work well with features, and how you have seemingly picked the right people to get on your projects and feature with. Bloodstained Suede Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! Now, this was also produced by Clipto.
Absolutely.
And now, for you listeners, we're going to get into a little bit of the songs now. We actually going to play snippets, so you can get a little bit of flavor. So you can kind of just let it marinate a little bit. And if you want to hear more now, you're going to have to go and either buy or download and stream so you can get familiar with IAMGAWD. Want to hear more? Check out part 2.